Hello, everyone. My name is Kiana, and I'm super excited to welcome you to the first debut episode of our new audio series called Blackness. So, just for some quick context, Blackness is a new audio series that's being started under the Zexel Initiative. So, this is the first creative venture under this initiative. And for those that aren't familiar with what the Zexel Initiative is, the Zexel Initiative is a new social initiative that I launched just earlier this month, an effort to create a world where everyone can live authentically free from, bias and expectation. So this show is really our first big step towards that vision. And I couldn't be more excited to share it with you all finally. So this show has been in the works for the last year or so. There's been a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes to make it possible. So, I'm just really glad to finally be here. And in addition to this being like our first creative venture and this being the first episode, this is also my first time actually hosting something like this. So, I'm still trying to understand the landscape of it all, try to get a grasp of how to do this. So just bear with me, we can figure it out together. So, but with that being said, in the spirit of things, it being first, things being first, and this being a lot of first, I thought what better way to start this series off with someone who's very much a first in their own right? So it's for today's show, I had the privilege of bringing on Miss Seanika Mathis. And for, those who don't know who Seanika Mathis is, I just want to take some time to give you some context of why you should know who she is. So Seanika is a student leader who's made history as the first Black president of the undergraduate student government at Arizona State University. ASU is one of the United States' largest public institutions, so that's very much an achievement in its own right. But it's not even just about the title that she has. She's someone who's actively creating change on her campus and around the Phoenix community. So as a USG president, she's worked to ensure that marginalized students feel seen and supported. One way that she's done this primarily is through her work with culture-based groups to ensure that those students are getting the resources that they need. And, one of her more prominent accolades being founding the Celebrating Black Brilliance event that happens at ASU every year now. And she's also been able to serve her Phoenix community as well through her involvement in her sorority Delta Sigma Theta. So being the social action chair for the undergraduate chapter at Arizona State University, Seanika has been able to plan community service events for ASU students to give back and serve the Phoenix community at a greater scale. And additionally, with 2024 being an election year, she was also able to host several civic engagement events that were able to, help students find ways to get civically involved in their communities, as well as helping them stay informed about the election that was going on during that time. But just overall, Seanika is an amazing trailblazer that's very much committed to the work that she does for her community. And, while that alone is enough of a reason for me to want to bring her on this show, I know that my main reason for wanting to bring her on is just how deeply her story resonates with Blackness and redefining what Black identity looks like today. The entire point of the series is about dismantling the narrow definition of Blackness that society has created, whether that's through social media or news media or even within our own communities. It's very much an issue that needs to be addressed. And this point of this podcast is to celebrate the diversity of the Black experience and, embrace the fact that there's no single way that Blackness looks like. It's very much infinite. And with that in mind, I very much feel like Seanika's story is a testament to that truth. With her being the first Black president of ASU's undergraduate student government, her journey basically represents what it means to step into spaces where you may not see anyone that looks like you. It's about challenging stereotypes and showing that leadership doesn't have to fit into like a predefined box set for you. And with that alone, I very much feel like Seanika was an appropriate guest to bring on this show. So her experiences and her story. So without further ado, well, real quick before I get into that, in this episode, we do talk about the concepts of PWIs and HBCUs. So just to quickly define those terms for people who may be unfamiliar, a PWI refers to a predominantly white institution, which is essentially an institution of higher learning that has a predominantly white population, whereas HBCU is a historically Black college, which is a college, that's historically Black founded. So nevertheless, without further ado, I hope you guys enjoy this episode. And yeah, thank you for your time. Today, I have the pleasure of being in the studio with Miss Seanika Mathis. Her achievements and her resume speaks for her already, but I'm going to go ahead and give her the opportunity to introduce herself.
Thank you. My name is Seanika Mathis. I am a senior here at Arizona State University studying criminology and criminal justice with a minor in philosophy. I also serve as the downtown student body president.
Okay, for sure. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Miss Mathis. Okay, so let's start off in the beginning. So let's talk about your home life, where you're from, and we'll just go from there.
Yeah, so I am from Anchorage, Alaska. That's where I was born and raised up until about eighth grade. Officially, eighth grade year is when we permanently moved to Arizona, and I've been here ever since. Me, my mom, and my brother, who's now 17 years old, and then I have two younger brothers, at the ages of 4 and 1 years old.
Okay, for sure. So why don't you tell me about what it was living like in Alaska? That's a very unique experience.
Yeah, it was cold. It was cold. Um, it was nice though. I mean, I only lived there for my childhood years. So I couldn't tell you about, I guess, the experience of living there now. I definitely go back to visit my family, like my grandparents and stuff like that. But it was nice. We lived in a nice neighborhood, lots of kids, always playing outside. So I feel like I had a pretty good childhood out there, actually.
Okay, love to hear that. So I know the question you probably always get is that do they have black people in Alaska? So so I'm just curious. So what's the black population looking like out there?
That's actually so funny. I was just talking to my grandma about this today on FaceTime, but um so the black population is, yes, there's black people in Alaska. First, yes, there's black people in Alaska. It's I would say that Alaska's literally the definition of a melting pot.
Mm,
A lot of people are out there for military, but also a lot of people migrate to Alaska, so we had all different types of cultures represented out there, from Hawaiians to Samoans to Africans. The Sudanese population out there is pretty, actually, it's pretty nice, actually. It's very diverse, but not very black
okay.
still.
That makes
So,
sense. Okay.
still its fair share of white people. Um, and, you know, but our community is definitely underrepresented out there, but it is pretty diverse, I would say.
Okay, for sure. So if you don't mind me asking, what was that jump like from Alaska to Arizona? Because, I know you described Alaska as very much of a melting pot. Coming to Arizona, I know things may have looked a little differently for you and your family. So what was that experience like?
Um, Definitely a culture shock for sure.
Mm.
Um, and now that I've lived out here for a while, I get kind of offended when people say it's a culture shock out here. Um, but thinking back to when I had first moved here, like, yeah, definitely a culture shock. There's not very much diversity out here, even compared to Alaska. Like, I see the same types of people, I hear the same types of things. Um, it's not as warm and welcoming, I will say. Not as community oriented either. It really feels like every man for himself out here.
Mm.
In Alaska, at least I felt like there was more of a sense of community.
Mm.
So I would say it was a culture shock that way. Um, and then yeah, weather-wise, I feel like I got,
Two extremes.
yeah, definitely two extremes. From the negatives to over 100 degrees is like crazy, but I adjusted to the Arizona temperature pretty quickly. I would say I do love the sun, so even though it gets extreme out here sometimes, but I feel like I've adjusted well.
Okay, for sure. So just to make sure I'm following, so you stayed in Alaska up till eighth grade and then you came out here, correct?
Pretty much. Well, I actually moved to Arizona the end of my fifth grade year,
Mm.
stayed through sixth grade, moved back to Alaska towards the beginning or middle of 7th grade, then moved back to Arizona 8th grade. So like my middle school, I did a lot of moving around. But I've been permanently here in Arizona since 8th grade.
Got you. Okay, for sure. So you went to high school out here as well. What high school did you go to?
Yes. I went to Desert Edge in Goodyear, Arizona.
Okay, for sure. Not in my district, but shout out the people from Desert Edge, so that's cool. So what type of things were you involved in school though?
In high school?
Yeah, just high
Yeah.
school, middle school, like what are some of the activities that, caught your
Yeah, in
interest?
high school and middle school. Well, in middle school, I danced and I cheered a little bit. In high school, I continued to cheer pretty much all 4 years, whether that was club cheer or um, varsity cheer at my school. And then I also did track my freshman and sophomore year of high school.
So if you don't mind me asking, what drew you to those activities in particular?
Um, Honestly, my aunt, she did cheer when she was younger, and she really pushed me, and inspired me to pursue cheer and dancing. She loved dancing, loves cheerleading, loves all that stuff. So we used to do it like, and then me and my friends or my cousins used to like make up dances, at the cousin hangouts, or do stuff like that, or learn dances from YouTube. So I think it was just a natural inclination to like my interests.
Mm.
And then track, I honestly can't really remember what got me into track. I think that one of my friends that I cheered with did track, and she convinced me to join, and then I ended up really liking it.
Mm.
So I did that for those first 2 years, and then my junior and senior year of high school, I think I got very committed to cheer, and I just couldn't commit to track, especially with our competition seasons and everything
Mm.
like that.
Okay, so it seems like cheerleading was your favorite.
Yeah.
Okay, for sure. Love to hear that. So now, okay, so we talked about a little bit of your high school life. What was the journey to ASU? What brought you to this university, and let's go from there.
Yeah, so I honestly, different answer. I usually say that, ASU offered me the best scholarship, but I think that we should go back to why I even applied. Um, so obviously, like my junior year, COVID hit, and then senior year, COVID continued, and I became really unmotivated actually. Um, and I feel like I had big dreams at first, but I I think that I got pretty depressed during COVID. And so ASU actually ended up being the only school I applied to. Um, Even though I considered going to HBCUs or, whatever. But ASU actually ended up being the only school I applied to, just because I feel like that's probably like all I had in me at the time, was to, just do this ASU application so I could go to college. I was really motivated to go to college, and I'm really motivated about my career, and I always knew what I wanted to do. But I was just kind of in that rut at the end of my senior year where I was like, okay, I just have to get this done.
Mm.
So ASU actually ended up being the only school I applied to, but I was offered scholarships from ASU and NAU before I applied to
Mm.
both. And ASU's scholarship was better.
Now you're here at ASU. So what have been your thoughts on your ASU experience so far?
I mean, I chose it because of that better scholarship. But what's really made me stay is all of the opportunities that ASU has to offer are just like wonderful. The resources are amazing. Um, I feel like there's so much offered at this university, and there can be something for anyone to find here.
Mm.
And I think that finding my place at the university has made the experience enjoyable.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear that you've been enjoying your experience at ASU so far. But my follow-up question to you is, would you say that, initially you did consider going to a historically Black college? So do you feel that in going to a PWI, you've in some ways missed out on a certain experience or certain opportunities, or what are your thoughts on that?
I would say yes and no. Um, yes, because obviously just a PWI is a different experience than an HBCU. I, I do believe that I've missed out on culture, community, things of that nature. But I also feel like I've been able to find and build my own here at ASU, even though it
Mm.
may not be everywhere I go, everywhere I walk, everywhere my head turns. But I know that I can find it. I would say no because, like I said, I'm from Alaska. I grew up in Alaska, grew up in Arizona, so I don't know that I know enough about what I would be missing out on to feel like I'm actually missing out on something, if that makes sense. I have friends from places like Atlanta or, you know, Houston or, things like that where they feel that culture shock in a different way by attending a PWI, but here at ASU, it kind of reflects my previous experiences being in schools. I've never been at a predominantly, Black school. So I can't say that I feel like I'm missing something because I never had it.
Mm.
But I can say I feel like I am continuing to miss out on an experience that, you know, I could possibly have one day. So.
So I hear you kind of touch on this piece about, even though you may not see culture all around you at ASU, you're still able to find it in certain like boroughs or certain areas. So with that being said, my question to you is, what does finding culture at ASU look like for you? I guess what's been your experience trying to, navigate that and, finding your space?
Yeah, I would say that it took a little bit of time, maybe. I'd also say that it fluctuated. So, like my freshman year, I was lucky enough to have a roommate that I got along with really well. She was also a Black woman. We had a lot of things in common. And, she ended up being my community, or part of my community. I also made friends with, a couple other Black students. And so that was my community my freshman year. Moving forward from my freshman year, I started finding community regarding my culture more in clubs and organizations. So things such as the Black Student Union, that's definitely been one of the things I've been involved with that has helped me connect with my culture and community. Um, and then also my freshman year, I had the opportunity to be a co-founder for the Celebrating Black Brilliance event that we do here on ASU's downtown campus. It started in collaboration with the Watts Idea Office, and that really inspired me because it's an event, 2 to 3 day event where we highlight, Black students and their accomplishments, whether that's them presenting, a pitch for something or maybe performing poetry or dance. Um, it's just a really good community to be around. We bring in local Black businesses, Black organizations, that can support our community. And that's been an annual event since my freshman year. So I've gotten the opportunity to do that every year. And it has definitely helped shape my perspective um, of attending a PWI. I think that there are, hmm, I think that it it's easy to feel like it's just not for you. Like there's just not anything for you at these institutions, but when you really indulge yourself in these programs or communities or clubs, it can feel like that's what you're surrounded by. So I think that's definitely helped me in that realm with community and connection, all those things.
Absolutely. I'm glad to hear that. I know for a lot of Black students who go to PWIs, they tend to, struggle with finding their people or finding, where they fit in. So I'm glad to see that you've kind of made it your own. So that's perfect.
Thank you.
With that being said, in terms of making it your own, you do happen to also be the first Black first Black female undergraduate president of ASU's undergraduate student government.
Hmm.
That's an amazing achievement. So why don't you go ahead and tell us about, what the journey was like to get there?
Yeah, of course. So I joined student government my freshman year of college as well, second semester. I was not in student government in high school or anything like that, but I had a friend that was very passionate about it, and he told me I should apply. He recommended me, and I joined, and I really grew to love it. I loved how being around peers who were, motivated to do for their community, how they motivated me. Um, and, I've been in student government ever since. And last year in March or April, um, last year, second semester, I was elected as the student body president for undergraduate student government downtown. And I am the first Black president for the undergraduate student governments. So not only the first Black woman, first Black president, period. So that has been an amazing achievement for me. It's been wonderful. It was a little bit shocking. Like I almost didn't believe it. I did the research myself. I went back, I looked at all the presidents, all the student body presidents ever at ASU, and I saw that I was the first. And so I was shocked. I didn't believe it at first. And then I was reached out to, for interview opportunities about being the first. And it was really awesome because I'm not doing this work. I didn't do this work with the hope of being, the first Black person to be in this role. Um, I did this work because I love it and it just happened to be a benefit. It was also crazy to me just because it is 2024 and I that's also why I kind of couldn't believe it because it's like, wow, it's 2024 and I'm the first. So that's a little bit of how I was feeling as well, but it's been very exciting. It's been a wonderful opportunity to inspire others. I believe I like I just want people to know that they can do anything they put their mind to, um as long as they're dedicated and believe in the work they do and are motivated. So yeah, it's been a wonderful experience so far.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's such an amazing accomplishment. But I gotta ask, at some point when you were deciding to run for presidency or even just being involved in USGD, did you often at any times feel discouraged or kind of, a little scared being one of the very few Black students a part of it, or?
um I would say I did feel I did. I did feel a little bit scared. I did feel a little bit discouraged. Especially considering some of the former USG presidents that I am familiar with, or aware of, or, know of. It, I think when people started to realize that I was interested in the position of president, they started to doubt me and they started to feel like I'm not worthy, and I internalized it. I did get, um, you know, uh, I wouldn't say a lot of, but I did get some, you need to work harder, not from my own community, Um, but from white peers who saw me interested in doing maybe what they were already doing or what they thought they could do. I did originally have people, persons, a person, um, who was considering running against me because they thought that they could fulfill the role better than I could. Um, Another white peer. Um, so I would say that I did get personally, I did have a little bit of imposter syndrome, but I never thought I couldn't do it until I started internalizing what other people were saying to me, the small little comments that were being made. When you start internalizing other people's doubts, it it's just the wrong way to go because nobody knows you like you know yourself. Nobody knows what you're capable of. Nobody knows what you've accomplished already. Nobody knows all your accomplishments. Nobody knows what you've survived. There's a lot of things that people don't know about your own personal self that you bring to the table, whether that's academically, professionally, or personally. Nobody knows your entire life story, so they can't tell you what you can and can't do. And I think that's an important thing to note when it comes to believing in yourself. If you already believe in yourself, don't let somebody else take that away from you. I think that it's important to believe in yourself. But if you don't believe in yourself, don't let somebody else be the reason why, at least. So, yeah, because I mean, you can't fix what somebody thinks of you always. You can't always fix what somebody thinks of you, but if it's coming from you internally, you know that you can work on yourself. But if you're internalizing somebody else's feelings and you don't even know where those are coming from, it's how are you supposed to fix it and you don't know the root? You don't know. It's not connected to you. So, yeah, that's what I have to say about that.
Wow. Yeah. An extremely powerful testament. Now, I completely agree and feel with what you're saying. But coming into the position, I know having to face a lot of those doubters getting into it, but now that you've kind of come into this position, what are some challenges that you've actually faced being, a Black woman in this role?
I'm going to say two main things. Two main things or challenges that I faced being a Black woman in this role. The first thing is having my own opinions and feeling strongly and being passionate about my beliefs um, can and has been taken the wrong way. Of course, I mean that's a Black woman in any circumstance. I feel like people are always going to find a way to make you seem bitter or angry or aggressive when it's really that maybe you're just closed-minded and offended that I want to defend my point, or offended that I do want to stand up against you and tell you that I believe the steps you're taking to this situation are not beneficial to the community.
Mm.
And when you do that, I've realized in my experience, I've seen the reactions. People get caught off guard. Like, they really do. They really, really do. So I would say that's one of the things I've experienced is, especially when I know I'm right in some instances, that's another thing is, when the time comes where you have to prove somebody wrong, that may be stubborn in a belief or things of that sort, it gets a little bit touchy, especially, I guess, coming from a Black woman, that what you're saying is actually not factual, or I have proof to back up what I'm saying, which goes against what you're saying. And it's not a personal thing. It's not that I'm against you. I'm against your idea. I'm against your proposal. I'm not against you. But I feel like people take that as I'm against you, and then all of a sudden they're against me. Um, the second thing I would say as a Black woman is in this role is my day-to-day life on campus is interesting to say the least because people don't see me. If you're not aware of, my role or what I do or who I am, people don't see me and assume that I have any type of power,
Mm.
And in interactions I've had at this university, I've had some pretty disrespectful interactions. I've had some pretty unfortunate interactions, and I've been belittled. I have been belittled time and time again by people who work at this university or people who I don't even know, just people around. I've been belittled, I've been disrespected. Um, I've been talked to like I'm not a young woman in a at a college university. Um, and it's unfortunate. I would say I've been profiled. I've been asked to leave certain areas by police, like where my office is located. And it's like not directly tied to my role, but the difference between my day-to-day interactions with people and how people treat me when we're in a meeting and negotiating or discussing or things like that, it is a stark difference. And being in a position of power is probably the closest thing that I would get to being in a position of maybe racial or cultural privilege. So to see that there is this treatment that I could be receiving, this respect that I could be receiving, or this respect that others receive on a day-to-day basis just because they may look a certain way or, present a certain way. Um, it was really just shocking. Like, wow, you do know how to treat somebody with respect.
Mm.
Wow, you do know how to talk to somebody like they're your equal. And that's not my day-to-day experience all the time. So I would say that's definitely, something that I've experienced at this university. And this role is noticing the differences in treatment depending on what role I'm playing at the time, whether I'm, just a Black girl walking into a Starbucks or whether I'm, a student body president that has the power to negotiate this amount of money with you. It really makes a difference. So, yeah.
Okay, so given your very diverse background, especially, well, obviously being involved in USGD as well as some of the other things you've been involved in, do you feel like your Blackness has ever been called into question because of the things you've been involved in or the things you've been passionate about?
That is a really good question. Um, kind of, I guess would be my answer. Um, in some professional settings, of course, I feel I have to act a certain way. So I guess if I'm, you know, doing something, representing something, and I have a group of friends or, a group of people hyping me up and I can't acknowledge them in the way that I usually would or in the way that they would expect me to, I would say, I don't know if it's made my Blackness be called into question, but I could see how people could be like, "Whoa, okay, so we're not, not being super Black here." Um, or also when there's events going on, and this could also just be an internalized thing that I'm feeling because I don't think my Blackness has ever been called into question directly to me. But also in events going on, I would say, sometimes I can't step aside and say, hey, what's up, girl? Like to my friends, like sometimes I have to stay here and do this, what I'm working on. And I would hate for anyone of my people to feel neglected. by me doing that and by me working in my space. So I wouldn't say it's been directly called into question, but I would say I may have had some times where I internalized the feeling of, man, I wish I could interact with them in this way, but unfortunately I can't because I'm working.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a pretty great testament. I feel like a lot of times people feel like they have to disregard their blackness or quote unquote not show up authentically as who they are in order to be in a leadership role. And I feel like your testament there perfectly demonstrates that no, you can be black and still show up professionally how you need to. So I absolutely love that response. But with that being said, how do you feel your stories help to challenge stereotypes about black women in leadership? And then do you feel like stories like yours are often overlooked, or do you know they're not thoroughly uplifted? So what are your thoughts?
Um, I believe that the stereotype, I guess I don't really know what the stereotype is amongst the broader community. I feel like within the Black community, it's known, regardless of how much it's argued, but it's known that Black women work hard and, do what they need to do. They're motivated. At least that's what I know. Um, and that's what I believe my community thinks. I can't really speak on what the stereotypes may be, but I think that is known within the Black community. Outside from us, the stereotype fluctuates, I guess, but I think that, some people believe that we expect things to be handed to us based on the color of our skin, or that, we're gonna, yeah, basically we're gonna sit around and wait for it to get to us. Um, I think that I definitely break that stereotype because I mean, I've been committed, like I said, since my freshman year. This isn't something that I was familiar with beforehand, but there's plenty of people who have been in this organization at as long as I have, and they're not sitting where I'm at right now. And
Mm.
that's not a dig at them at all. We all take our different paths, and not everybody wanted or wants to be president, but I wanted it and I worked hard for it. I showed up for it. I, applied myself to get to where I'm at. So I do believe I'm breaking that stereotype of, expecting things to be handed to me, or expecting a savior to, I don't know. But I think that I break that stereotype. I think that I align with the stereotype of the hardworking Black woman, that our community sees. But I do also want to emphasize that I am a lover, not a fighter. I feel like while our community highlights how hard Black women work, um, they also try to tie that in with, this hyper independence, which I am an independent woman, but I'm not, this standoffish, you know, push away, like, kind of girl. I'm a lover, an embracer, and I'm just motivated by my goals.
So what advice can you offer to this next generation of black leaders and black creators and what's some words of wisdom that you can provide?
I will say, be authentic to who you are. It is better to be you than to try to be something else to fit in and be cool, because you will look a lot more cool if you're just thriving as yourself. I will also say that you can do actually anything. Like, think about it and you can do it. There's a way. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Just because you don't see someone else like you doing it already, be the first. We are trailblazers. We are trendsetters. Um, and it can start as young as you are. It can start as old as you are. Um, it's timeless. That's another thing. Blackness is timeless. So those are my words of wisdom.
Now, Miss Mathis, the whole point of this series is us trying to delve into this idea that there isn't one way for Blackness to look like. We really want to showcase all aspects of what Black identity can be. So my question to you is, personally, what does Blackness look like to you? If you had to kind of give your own definition of it, how would you define it?
To me, Blackness is a wonderful, it's beautiful, it's deep, so, so deep. Um, it is joy and it's thriving. But it's also awareness and application. You have to take your struggles and apply what you can to thrive. So it's a lump sum of things, but overall positive.
And it can't just be one thing.
No.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining me in the studio, Miss Mathis. I really appreciate it.
Of course, anytime.
Well, all right, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to conclude this first episode for our Blackness series here. I hope you guys enjoyed. Like I said, this series has been in production for about over a year or so now, so I hope that you guys I'm just super excited to finally be able to share with you guys, and like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed. Episode 2 for this series will be coming out shortly, so please feel free to stay tapped in with us at any of our socials. All of our socials will be posted in the description below, so make sure to just connect with us there. And secondly, I would like to give a huge shout out and big thank you to Miss Seanika Mathis for joining me in the studio today. We all appreciate the work that you're doing, and we look forward to what's to come. So nevertheless, I hope everyone has a good day, and I look forward to seeing you guys next time. Thank you.